Thanks for joining me today. The current bewilderment and surprise over the subprime crisis that's shaking financial and real estate markets would be funny if it really wasn't so sad. This meltdown in the U.S. credit markets was really predictable. It can be traced back to a combination of unintended consequences from government policy and excessive risk-taking by lenders. The price of real estate, like most every investment, cycles according to the universal law of supply and demand. Raise demand, prices increase. Lower demand, prices drop. It would seem inevitable that a housing boom created by the easiest credit available in modern history would someday go flat. The subprime loans you hear about were, in part, a policy decision of the U.S. government in the late 90s to increase home ownership from around 64% to 68%. This was according to statistics cited in a recent article by Holman Jenkins Jr. in the Wall Street Journal. Subprime loans refer to the practice of making loans to borrowers who don't qualify for the lowest interest rates because their credit has some sort of a problem. By making mortgage money available to those who normally would not be able to qualify, demand for housing increased. Subprime loans were just one result of this policy. Others included zero down payment first mortgages, home equity loans that even exceeded the value of the home, and interest-only loans made to credit-worthy borrowers. All these contributed to the increase in buying power and demand for housing. Builders could hardly keep up. Prices rose as the surge in buyers bid up prices on an inelastic supply of housing. Now, buyers who normally could not qualify for the larger loans shot for the moon, gambling with no interest loans and subsidized initial loan payments. The ensuing payments on these high loan amounts amounted to up to 50% of their take-home pay. Many rolled the dice, hoping that when the payments increased in a few years, that they would have received significant pay raises to cover the increase. Now, it doesn't take a PhD in economics to figure out that the gamble wouldn't work out for everybody. Today, millions of subprime and credit-worthy borrowers who gambled and lost are being forced to sell their homes, all at the same time. When a glut of homes hits the market simultaneously, at the same time that fewer buyers are available, prices are going to fall. This sell-off probably should continue for the next few years as these loans all come due over this period of time. Now, when the price of a home purchased with nothing down falls by even 1%, much less say 5 or 10%, the seller must come up with cash at closing to fully pay off the loan. Since most of these buyers had nothing down in the first place, they don't have the cash to write a check at closing. So lenders are faced with losing the difference or foreclosing on the loans and taking the houses into their inventory to sell themselves. Again, predictably, subprime borrowers and their elected officials are looking for someone to blame. Perhaps they needn't look that far. A recent study cited by the Wall Street Journal, done by Carolina Katz-Reed, suggests the fundamental cause may be a flawed government policy. Now, Reed's study addressed the issue of whether low-income households actually benefited from subprime loans created with the intention of bringing them the American dream of homeownership. Her study spanned about a 15 to 20-year period. That study found that 53% of them returned to renting within 5 years after buying their home. She concluded that high housing payments left less money for education and necessities. Families were also geographically tied down and less likely to relocate for better jobs. Ever since the days of silent movies, we've had a stereotypical image of the evil, greedy banker saying no to the poor but honest mortgage applicant. Maybe those bankers weren't so evil after all. Maybe the real villains are those who encouraged people to incur mortgage debt that they couldn't afford.